The president said the agreement worked out by UN Secretary General Kofi Annan in Baghdad allows for full UN weapons inspections at all sites in Iraq, including those 8 presidential palaces. However, Clinton warned that full implementation of the agreement remains the big if.
There are issues that still need to be clarified to our satisfaction, and details that need to be spelled out. We will hear from the Secretary General tomorrow on these questions, and we will work with him and with UNSCOM to make sure the inspections are rigorous and professional. What really matters is Iraq's compliance, not its stated commitments. Not what Iraq says, but what it does.
Well, the president said despite the agreement, the U.S. is not yet ready to call back the troops.
I have ordered our military to remain in the Persian Gulf. Our soldiers, our ships, our planes will stay there in force until we are satisfied that Iraq is complying with its commitments.
And the president warned Saddam Hussein that if Iraq once again failed to comply with that UN agreement, there would be what he called serious consequences.
The document itself was signed half a world away while much of the nation was still asleep. The agreement signed early this morning, U.S. time, in Baghdad. Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz signed the document for the Iraqi government, then stood to shake hands with Secretary General Kofi Annan. Well, afterwards, Annan and Aziz held a joint news conference. They refused to talk about specifics, but Annan said the agreement meets all the conditions set down by the UN Security Council. Annan said it addressed the right of UN weapons inspectors to have unlimited access to suspected weapons sites and that there are no time limits or deadlines in the agreement. Annan credited a mixture of diplomacy and U.S. military muscle with forging what he considered to be a good agreement.
We can do a lot more with diplomacy backed up by firmness and force.
Aziz claimed the breakthrough was the result of Annan's diplomacy alone and not what he called U.S. saber rattling.
It was diplomacy, wise, balanced, United Nations will diplomacy that enabled us to reach this agreement, not the saber rattling.
Well, after the news conference, Annan flew on to France. He'll spend Monday night there before flying on to New York City tomorrow to give a full briefing to the UN Security Council. Annan said Iraqi President Saddam Hussein, by the way, who was not at the morning news conference, is fully aware of everything in the agreement. Iraqi TV showed Hussein today meeting with members of the Revolutionary Council and his political party. Iraqi TV is portraying the agreement as a major victory for Hussein and the Iraqi people, and it shows images of an heroic leader and cheering crowds.
Well, around the world, reaction to the agreement has been almost all positive. Russia and China, the two harshest critics of the U.S. role, both expressed strong support. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu withheld judgment, wondering whether the deal did enough to remove Hussein as a threat.
I think it's too early to say what the results of this agreement are. We'll wait to see and to assess both what is happening in the Gulf and what should happen here.
At the United Nations today, the head of the UN inspection efforts said he also wanted to study the document, but he did praise Annan.
The Secretary General has obviously done an extraordinary job. He's to be deeply thanked and heartily congratulated.
Now, the showdown between the U.S. and Iraq had troops mobilizing around the nation, including at McGuire Air Force Base. Action News reporter Nora Mushanek has been getting reaction to the agreement from those who live and work around McGuire, and she joins us live at the base right now. Nora.
Lisa, officials here at the base have had no comment, but as you say, the folks in the communities around McGuire are saying plenty. They're glad that there is some kind of agreement, but they say based on past experience, they're not sure that Saddam Hussein will keep his word for very long.
I'm glad that there's an agreement. I would like to think that it would work out. I hope it does, but I don't feel as though he could be trusted.
We can't trust him, I don't think. I think he probably has those things hidden somewhere that nobody can find them.
At the Garden State Diner in Wrightstown, it seemed as if patrons have had a belly full of Saddam Hussein. Almost everyone we talked to said the same thing. Agreement or no agreement, Saddam Hussein cannot be trusted.
I think he's going to be pulling the same stuff he's been pulling, you know, saying, oh, it's okay now, as long as he has everything hidden, and then once we get close again, then he'll say no more.
I would be very wary. I would really do a thorough scouring of the area because I believe that he has hidden the weapon somewhere else. And
probably laughing. That's what Air Force wife Connie Miller thinks Saddam is doing right now. Her husband Alan works on McGuire's refueling tankers and shipped out to the Gulf yesterday. This mother of two fears a diplomatic solution to this crisis won't last.
He uses his own people for shields. I mean, children, women. I mean, how can you trust somebody like that?
At McGuire today, it was business as usual. 300 troops from this base are part of the forces now in and around the Persian Gulf, and many we talked with today felt those troops should stay for the time being.
We don't know what's going to happen there, and if we don't keep them there and we're not prepared, guess what? We could be in deep trouble.
To be honest, I just hope things all go for the best, because I don't want to see anybody hurt.
That, of course, is a big concern for the military families in this area. They want their loved ones to be safe, but they also have real questions about whether Saddam Hussein will honor this agreement. I'm Nora Mushanek reporting live on the Action Cam from McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey.
Thank you, Nora, and we will have more on the proposed agreement to end the U.S.-Iraq stalemate coming up on Action News at 6 o'clock tonight. Vernon Odom will report live from Washington with the reaction of local lawmakers to the news from Baghdad.
And now, Lisa, a tragic story still growing out of Florida. Tornadoes have left dozens of people dead as storms ripped through central Florida overnight. The overnight twisters tore over Tampa, through Orlando, on to Daytona Beach. From the air today, you could see the devastation. Florida officials are calling it the deadliest twisters in that state's history. And tonight, Florida authorities are putting the death toll at 33, and they're still counting. It's feared that more bodies might be found in wreckage like this. Trailer parks are hardly more than junkyards today. One man grieving after winds grabbed his 8-month-old baby from his arms. The boy was later found dead. One woman was in her trailer home when the tornado picked it up twice and set it down upright. And a rescuer told of a man who went on a wild ride in the river while he was still inside his house trailer.
A tornado hit his mobile home and took him and the mobile home into the river. And he was lucky enough to have put his life jacket on to go out and check the boats. And that's what saved his life. It drifted him down. He was found about a mile from where the tornado touched down.
Well, the winds mangled houses, even stripping pieces of aluminum siding off. You can see some metal bent around a branch there. From the air, you could see the cleanup and rebuilding, a monumental process underway in central Florida. And we'll have more on the deadly tornadoes later in the broadcast, including a live report from Florida coming up at 5:30. The Jersey Shore now bracing for another shot of wet, windy weather. Here's a live picture from the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Flood watches have been canceled, but gale warnings are still in effect along the Jersey and Delaware coast as that system moves up the coast. Dave Roberts will be along in a couple of minutes with more details from AccuWeather.
Well, in other news, some of the pressure is off the parents of Amy Grossberg tonight thanks to a judge's ruling, and it could have a major impact on their daughter's trial. Delaware correspondent Lauren Wilson has details.
Led by their attorneys, Sony and Alan Grossberg reluctantly came to Delaware last Friday, but the parents of Amy Grossberg weren't interested in talking about their court-ordered visit.
Can you tell us what brings you to Delaware today?
The Grossbergs never broke their silence, thanks to this judgment handed down on the very day the New Jersey couple was to be questioned by prosecutors. In a significant decision for the defense, Superior Court Judge Henry DuPont Ridgely ruled the Grossbergs don't have to tell all they know about the birth of their grandson, a child who was found dead in a dumpster much like this one after Amy Grossberg and her boyfriend Brian Peterson delivered the infant in this Newark motel. The date was November 12, 1996. Amy, a freshman at the University of Delaware, returned to her dorm room, only to be rushed to the hospital. On November 13th, police found the dead baby. That's the same day Amy's parents rushed to her side with attorney Charles Oberly in tow. Because the Grossbergs hired an attorney, Judge Ridgely ruled any conversations they had with Amy after November 13th are privileged. Prosecutors can question the Grossbergs about what they were told the 12 hours before they got to Amy's bedside. That may not be what Prosecutor Pete Latang wanted to hear. He subpoenaed the Grossbergs last Friday because he wanted to know exactly what they meant when they talked to Barbara Walters in this exclusive ABC interview.
Why do you think that Amy didn't tell you that she was pregnant?
I know the answer to that, but I'm not at liberty right now to give it.
So what did the Grossbergs talk about? We may never know because there is
This WeatherScope is sponsored by MCI, one company, one local to global connection.
This is WeatherScope.
Floridians assess the aftermath from the deadliest tornado outbreak in state history. 38 people are dead and damage estimates continue to rise. Meanwhile, in California, the assault of the El Nino-driven storms continues. Dangerous floodwaters and devastating mudslides are expected. Good afternoon and welcome to WeatherScope. Let's begin today's edition on what is heating up in California as a very soggy evening rush hour for the Los Angeles, San Diego area. And for that, let's turn to Lisa Moser in the Forecast Center. Lisa?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Bill. We are looking at snow, mountain snow towards the Sierra mountainous terrain, and we have some heavy rain showers in the valley. We take a look right now. We do have several advisories and warnings that have been posted in addition to lots of precipitation across the state of California. We are looking at heavy surf advisories at this hour. Looking at the regional radar, you'll notice that we are looking at mountain snow really coming down at this hour across the Sierra mountainous terrain. Still rain showers in and around northern, central, and southern California. We want to take you to a scene from earlier today, a dramatic rescue in Highland Park, California. Los Angeles firefighters airlifted a man from with his two dogs to safety after they became surrounded by rushing water in the Arroyo Seco wash. Now, heavy rain had washed into the area late this morning, and we are looking at the man and the two dogs that were unharmed. Thank you to the firefighters and this rescue. At this time, we turn to Tom Moore, who has been watching the system not only to the east but also to the west. A lot of dynamics coming into play. We've got mountain snow, we've got problems along the coastal area, and this afternoon you're talking about dynamics that are going to cause some additional problems, Tom.
Right, we have a frontal system coming on shore, but behind that we have a ball of energy in the atmosphere with cold air aloft. That'll be rotating into Southern California in the next few hours and bring more thunderstorms, maybe even some severe weather.
Okay, so we're talking about colder air aloft after some heating of the day, warm air below. Sounds like destabilization to me.
Right. Okay, now first of all, we'll look at a radar. We'll go into Northern California, and the front has gone through. So that's good news. It's past Fresno and past San Francisco. So from now on, we may have a few showers, but the heavy rain is all over. You talked about the mountains. Here in the Lake Tahoe area, tremendous snows right now. Visibility is under a quarter of a mile, and it looks like a foot to maybe 2 feet of snow. And there's already about 150% of the average snowpack already in these mountains, let alone what's going to happen later. Conditions now improving south of San Francisco and into Fresno now, where the winds have shifted and the heavy rain has ended.
Okay, and the current conditions and a little scenario on what's going to happen with that disturbance with the colder air aloft, Tom.
Well, first of all, we have the front tailing back near Santa Barbara, so we have very heavy rain now over Los Angeles, Burbank, Pasadena area. Also in the San Bernardino Mountains, the snow levels are going to get down to 4,000 feet, so we're going to have some heavy snow as well. Torrential rain right here, especially around the Hollywood area in Burbank. That front will go through, we'll get a little bit of a break, and then the system out to sea, that cold air aloft, will come on in and bring some thunderstorms this evening. So it looks like a stormy period, especially in the southern third of the state.
Okay, with all that rain coming down in Los Angeles, it comes to no surprise that we have several areas in and around Los Angeles that are currently experiencing some flash flooding, and warnings have been posted for that. Eventually, this moisture working its way in towards a little further into the high country?
Right, it'll get into the desert. There'll be some rain there, and then maybe down toward the San Diego area later this evening. But as you said, this yellows and oranges indicative of torrential rainfall, which could cause more mudslides and certainly a lot more flooding. They just can't handle any more rain, and looks like more rain is on the way. You can see it extends at least 50 miles back out to the west.
Okay, the overall scenario with the system, looking at the surface map, Tom.
Right, well, the front has made some progress, a little bit more than before. This system will come inland, reform east of the Rockies, and actually affect a good deal of the U.S. before it's all over.
Okay, but I want to back you up just a little bit and show you, show the folks at home the upper level disturbance that you were talking about earlier. You can really see it on the satellite here.
Right, here's the front we talked about, and then behind it, right here is what we're talking about. Low pressure in the upper atmosphere, cold air aloft, very cold, about as cold as it ever gets aloft in Southern California. And with that unstable situation, we could have thunderstorms, gusty winds, hail, and even some small tornadoes in Southern California this evening and overnight, so keep that in mind.
Okay, so we're only talking about a few hours away, so early evening additional problems in addition to what we currently have right now.
Especially down to the southern portion, like the LA Basin, for example. Yes.
Okay, and as you can see, we do have from Ventura down to the LA Basin, we are talking about problems with flooding that do exist also in the high country. Looking at those snow levels coming down to around 3,000 feet?
Or 4,000 feet, but that's pretty low in Southern California.
Okay.
Snow's going to pile up.
Okay, well, Tom, we're going to be checking back through with you through the night, overnight tonight. Right now, let's turn back to the studio for more details on the current scenario out towards the east.
All right, Lisa and Tom, thanks a lot. Deadly tornadoes ripped through the state of Florida last night and again early this morning. This afternoon, the same storm system is barreling up the eastern seaboard while the storm has moved out of Florida. Residents will be feeling its impact, though, for some time. These are the scenes from Central Florida where tornadoes tore a swath of destruction across Osceola, Seminole, Orange, and Volusia counties, and that's pretty much the Orlando area. As you can see, the damage is massive. At least 38 people dead, dozens are missing, and hundreds of homes and businesses were destroyed. Thankfully, the state's biggest tourist attractions, namely Disney World and Universal Studios and SeaWorld, were spared. And also, thankfully, that did not occur during the time when the crowds would be upon those parks. Again, the bulk of the action occurring between about 11 o'clock last night and about 2 o'clock this morning. That is when all the devastation was occurring here in east central areas of Florida. Things have improved today, but the tornadoes definitely left their mark. The worst of the tornadoes look like the one that hit around Sanford Airport up on Highway 92 going into Daytona Beach. This path right about here. Also the other one right about here around the Kissimmee area near Campbell City. I know the Ponderosa Campground, that was very, very hard hit. At least 7 fatalities there. And that again is pretty much south of SeaWorld and to the east of the Disney World complex. But nonetheless, just an awful night in east central areas of Florida. Things have stabilized today. The westerly wind is frisky, but the atmosphere is much more simmered down. It's not near as volatile as it was yesterday. Here's the next system. Carolina Beach is getting battered by some high wind earlier today. Now the higher wind and the possibilities of some high tides causing some flooding are moving up the coast. And the next high tides, for instance, around Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, and Portland, Maine, up around 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's going to be the critical time. So we'll be watching this low as it does start to barrel its way up the coast. As far as snow goes, a little more chance of it, I think, this go-around, as opposed to the last couple, as the snow is falling down to about 2,000 feet across Pennsylvania.